Good morning, third grade. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. Our math objective for today is to be able to place whole number fractions and fractions between whole numbers on the number line. You will need a piece of paper and a pencil as we work through this video today, so make sure you have that. If you don't have it, go ahead and pause the video here and press play when you're ready to continue. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is review some of the things we've already talked about. So here we learned that a fraction has two parts. It has a numerator and a denominator. So if I wanted to draw a picture to match this fraction 2/4, I would draw a circle. And then I would break it apart into 4 equal pieces. The reason why I would divide it into 4 equal pieces is because our denominator tells us the total number of pieces. So in this case, the denominator is 4. So that told me to break it into 4 pieces. So now I'm ready to look at my numerator. My numerator is going to tell me the number of pieces being counted. So here it says 2. So I'm going to color in 2 of my pieces. So now I have a picture that shows the fraction 2/4. So on your piece of paper, I want you to draw a number line that looks like this one here. Our number line has a starting point of 0. That means we don't want any numbers right now that are less than 0. And then it has an end point of 1, meaning we don't want any numbers greater than 1 right now. That's not our focus. So go ahead and pause the video here and make sure you have a number line that looks like this one. So when you're ready, it then tells us to estimate, to mark, and label to 1/4. So this part here, 1/4, the fourth part, is our denominator. So it tells us how many pieces we need to break our number line into. So if I draw a line right here down the middle, I've broken my number line into 2 parts, but I need 4. So I'm going to break each one of those parts in half. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts in my number line. So now I'm ready to look at the 1/4 part. Now I know that this is 0. So this as a fraction would be 0/4. Since we already know that our number line is broken into fourths, we already know that our number in the denominator is going to be 4. So starting with 0, we're going to continue to count up by fourths. So this is 1/4. This is 2/4. Oops. 2/4. Oops. A little hard to see. Fourths. 3/4. And then 1 or a whole is going to be our 4/4. So now that we've labeled our number line, we can look back and we can say, hey, this one was 0 right here. This one is 1. This one was 2. This one was 3. This one's 4. It asked us to label 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and circle 1/4. So here on this number line, we see that this one's a little bit different. Our endpoint and our starting point is 1 and 2. So go ahead and pause this video and draw your number line on your paper. And make sure your number line has a starting point of 1 and an end point of 2. So now we have to look at this a little bit differently because it doesn't start with 0, it starts with 1. So let's first find out how many pieces our number line is broken into in order to find our denominator. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces in our number line. So be careful, we're not counting the lines, we're counting the spaces in between. So from here to here is 1, from here to here is 2, from here to here is 3, and from here to here is 4. So we have 4 spaces in between our lines. So our denominator is 4. Now looking at this one is 1. So we know that if my denominator is 4 and I have a whole number of 1, that means I have 4/4. So we're starting with 4/4 in this case. So if we have 4/4, what do we think our next line or our next tick mark is going to be? Right, it's going to be 5/4. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can fill out the rest of the blanks and then come back. Okay, so this is what your number line should look like. We said that 1 whole is the same as 4 fourths, and then we count it up by fourths. So then we have 5 fourths here, 6 fourths here, 7 fourths here, and then as 2, we have 8 fourths because we continue to count up by 1/4. So our ending point of 2 is the same as 8 fourths. We call this equivalence. So 2 in this case is equivalent to 8 fourths. They're the same. So now let's look at another number line. In this case, our endpoints are 2 here and 4 here. But they also showed us that we're missing one in the middle. So what whole number do we think is going to fall between 2 and 4 to finish out our number line? Right, so here we're going to have to add the number 3 because we count 2, then 3, then 4. So our whole numbers are 2, 3, and 4. So now we have to stop and think. If from 2 to 3 is 1 whole, how many pieces is this part of our number line broken up into? So pause the video here and see if you can figure out how many pieces is this part of our number line broken up into. So here, our number line is broken up into 3 pieces. 1 piece here, 2 pieces here, and then 3 pieces here. So that tells us that automatically our denominator is going to be 3. Whatever we do to this part of the number line, we're going to check it on the other side just to make sure. So 1, 2, 3. So between here and here, we have 3. So that means our denominator here is 3 as well. So now let's look back. So if this is 3 as our denominator, we need to take a step back. What would the fraction be if our number line started at 1 and went to 2? So think for a second. If our number line started at 1 and was broken up into 3 pieces and stopped at 2, what would be the fraction for these numbers, these whole numbers? So we can use what we know about 1 and say that 1 is the same as 3/3, and then we can continue to count. So if 1 is 3/3, the next one counting by thirds would be 4/3. Then after that, 5/3. And then 2 would be 6/3. So looking at our number line, we start at 2. So we know that this fraction here is 6/3. So now we can continue to count by thirds to fill in the rest of our blanks. Pause the video now and see if you can do this on your own. So now that we finished our number line, we have a number line that looks like this. Our 2 is 6/3, the next one 7/3, the next one 8/3. Then we have 3, which is equivalent to 9/3. These are the same. Then you have 10/3, 11/3, and then 4 wholes or 12/3. Notice that each time we move up by 1/3, the denominator is still the same. It stays as 3 because our number line is still broken up into thirds. So no matter what, our denominator is going to be 3. Now, let's take a look at our exit ticket. Okay, so looking at the exit ticket, it gave us an example of the type of number lines that we just talked about. So this one starts with an endpoint of 1 and ends with an endpoint of 3. So our whole numbers are 1, 2, and 3. And in this case, our number line, if we just look at between 1 and 2, our number line is broken into 3 pieces. So here's 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. So our denominator is 3. So you can see that each one of these fractions has a denominator of 3. It does not change. So then we know that we're counting by thirds. We know that 1 here, 1 is the same as 3/3. Remember, we always want to completely fill our fraction when we have whole numbers. So 3/3. Then we're counting by thirds. So 4/3, 5/3, 6/3. So 2, our whole number 2 is the same as 6/3. So if I were to draw a rectangle and break it up into thirds, it tells me I have 2 of them, so I need to draw another one, break it up into thirds. So now I have 2 holes, which is what they tell me here. And now I need to shade in 6 pieces to check to make sure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that matches. So 2 holes is the same as 6/3. So I can continue to count by thirds. 7/3, 8/3, 9/3. This one says I have 3 holes. So I'm going to add to what I already have. Draw another rectangle, break it up into thirds. Here I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/3, 7/3, 8/3, 9/3. So you can see 3 holes. This is 1 hole here. This is 2 holes here. And this is 3 holes here is the same as 9/3. So then it tells us to estimate, to equally partition and label the fraction on the number line. Label the holes as fractions and box them. So make sure as you're labeling the number line, you break it into what it's telling you to break it up into. This one says fifths. Label the whole numbers. So remember, we talked about whole numbers. Make sure you label those as fractions. So what is 1 equal to? What is 2 equal to? As a fraction. And then you're finished. Have a good day, third grade.